that includes both names as a list. So we're going to go ahead and define my function, and it's going to receive name1, and it's going to receive name2, and we'll have the usual if statement. If type name1 is equal to string, put all that into parentheses, and type name2 is equal to string, then now there are three different ways that you can return a list, right? The simplest is to simply print name1, name2, and that'll return a nice list. If I put it down here under my func, I get my tabbing correct, my func, Fido, and Rover are my dog names, right? And that will turn them into a list. But of course, there's a different way to create a list, which is to use the list function, list, name1, name2. Almost got two. No, I scratched that. What I wanted to do was append. So we'll do new list is equal to blank, and then for name in name1, name2, new list dot append name, and then print new list, and that'll also give us the same result. Functions that use Python's built-in type function. I've actually been doing this the entire time, though it was kind of expected to, I guess, wait until the end. Given any input, determine what its type is and print that. Okay, so given any input, determine what its type is. Define new function. It will receive an input called input value. It will return type input value. So I run this, and then I can test it out by doing new function on the number 2, and that's an integer. 2.5, and that's a float. That's a string. That's a Boolean. That's a Boolean. That's a tuple. And one more. Oops. Key is to value. That's going to be a dictionary. And then the last two are kind of simpler to that. It's just functions that reuse the type element. And then this last one is a handy trick, which is if you don't want to specify the number of inputs, you can put a wildcard in front of it. And a wildcard will receive any number of inputs. So in this example, wildcard, and then I use args as short for arguments. If the length of args is 2, print args. Otherwise, print an error response only 2 args, please. But even a simpler way to do this to demonstrate this point is my func star a for arguments, print length a, and then we do my func 2, 3, 4 true, and that has 4 elements to it. And then I add another one, and this is going to be string, and now it has 5 elements. So the wildcard is extremely helpful if you're not sure how many inputs your user is going to give, or you just want to handle all of them. Then you can use the wildcard. And typically, you can use any word. It's common to use the statement args to refer to your arguments. And if you want to use them in a function, then you can do the following. Print, I'm going to go ahead and use args here. Args, you can print args 0, and you can print args 1, assuming that they're in range, but they're not, A is not defined, etc. Okay, right, because it's args. There we go. Okay, well, let me go ahead and stop there. It's a good time for a break, 7:48. Let's go ahead and take 13 minutes, we go to 8 o'clock. And I would love feedback during the break if I'm going too fast, too slow, or if this is too repetitive, do please let me know. Okay, 8 o'clock, thanks.
So does that, sorry, the star args, so the argument's considered a list then because you're doing the index,
Well,
index 0?
How would we find out if it's a list? Do you know? It's a tuple. It's like a list, but the elements can't be rearranged. They're like frozen in stone.
Makes sense.
So yeah, definitely feel free to go back over some of that. And during the break, I am recording this because, hey, Regina, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry, but I forgot to start the recording early. So I'm just going to go back through some of the earlier elements in this notebook so you know what we missed. So this is functions, and we talked about how you can have any 2 inputs that go into a function and return that value. And then we talked about how you can subtract 2 and return that value. And we talked about how oftentimes when you write a function, you want to have an error handling statement, which is an if-then statement, such as the one displayed here. So here I'm testing whether or not the type of each element is an integer, so that I can perform floor division on them. And if they're not, then I have a error handling print statement or an error message. In this next one, once again, I have the same error handling message, but I have a print statement that uses a formatted string here, and also the one below it is a formatted string showing the results of the function. Remember that a function can stop with either the print statement or the return statement, as we saw up here. The difference is variable assignment. The next example, given any number, return the square root of that number cubed. And I showed how in this one you could, if you wanted to, reuse your function by feeding it a list of numbers and then using a for loop, and for every element in the list, go ahead and build out a new list using the .append function, which is a built-in Python function. And then our user-defined function, myfunc, in order to carry out the mathematical computation, resulting in a list of 4 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, that corresponds to the original list, 3, 4, 5, 6, but with the expected transformations. Likewise here, given any 4 numbers, add the first 2 and multiply that by the difference of the last 2. This is a simple way of writing that function, but a much more complicated way is to have a series of nested error handling statements. The outer edge of the function has try and except. Try is a catch-all that will attempt to carry out all of the if-then statements specified. But if none of those works and the user input still results in a break, the except is a catch-all that will catch all other errors and simply prevent your your specified error statement while that did not work. And here I've got a fairly complicated nested for loop to handle number of elements and number of types, before carrying out the mathematical computation. Down here, variable assignment, so here's a simple function, but remember that you can use your function and set it equal to a variable. Here's a function where given any two names, you create a new variable that includes both names as a list. There's two different ways to do that. Several examples of using Python's built-in type value, two of which I didn't do, but I think they're pretty straightforward. Finally, arguments. So I hope that's useful.